G'day, Tragic here, and welcome to my Mage Night mod that I made with Cryptotia. And we've got a huge update for you here with this mod. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show the new features of the mod, and then at the end of the video, after all that quick overview, I'm going to have a more detailed look at how to use everything in the mod. And this will replace the original video I did. So let's just get straight into it. You'll start the game and you'll end up with something that looks like this. Now, if you don't have these big start buttons, make sure that in the scripting button here, you have auto run ticked. This will basically solve any problems that you have with the mod, especially if you're saving games in progress and then reloading them. Now, it's pretty simple how to get the mod to start. For starters, you've got competitive mode on and competitive mode off. This is all the same, but we now have a button that says Blitz. And the reason for that is when you are running Blitz, you have extra unit cards being dealt as well as using extra dice. And there's a number of campaigns besides the Blitz campaign that uses Blitz rules. So if you're playing a game that has Blitz rules, or if you want to run Blitz rules on any particular campaign, you just click this button to turn it on. And the reason we're doing that is that now we have an automated unit offer. So let me just load the game so we can get it started. I'll turn competitive mode on and I'll hit start and everything will set up. And what we have here now is an actual automated unit offer, which is the major change. So there's 3 buttons. You've got, at the moment it says 7 regular units, 0 elite units. And the reason why it says 7 is because we're playing 4 characters. So that's 4 plus 2 plus 1 for Blitz. Now, if we didn't have Blitz clicked, it would be 6. And if you want to, once the core tile's revealed, you just turn on elite units. And as you can see, then you just press this button, the top button, and it will deal out the cards for the unit offer. And it even deals it out in the correct order. So it goes elite, regular, etc., etc. Now, it doesn't really stop there though. Basically, you'll notice that this has been changed, so it looks blank. But now you can grab revealed monastery tiles, and as you reveal a tile, you just drop the monastery into the slot, and out comes the action card that's related to the monastery. And, so if I drop a second one in, 2 monastery cards come out, and it even says 2 monasteries down here, just to give you a little bit of a visual feedback. And of course, if you hit the clear unit button, everything goes back to where it's supposed to, and if you redeal, it'll check to see how many monasteries are here and redraw the monastery tiles as needed. So that's one of the big changes. There's also the empty slide, the slide buttons still functions the same way they always did. So even if you have cards taken out from various slots, it'll just update as it's supposed to. Okay, so that's the unit offer, which is the big major change. Also, one of the largest complaints I ever got about the old mod was the rules buttons. Basically, what happened is if you had the rules out on the table and then you saved the game and you reloaded the mod later, all the rules buttons would break. That is no longer the case. These are now fixed. So you've got the quick scenario reference. You can click on that and out comes all the scenarios. And this is just a sort of a quick overview of the scenarios. And of course, you've got the walkthrough, the rule sets for the 3 expansions and the 3 rule sets, the core set and the expansions. So you can just read these as you need. So that is this. Now there's a button here called Fix. I'm not 100% sure what this does. I'm pretty sure this is no longer needed. There was a kind of slight error that was coming in the like a bug that we couldn't track down, well, Cryptotia couldn't track down, I should say. All this is Cryptotia. He's doing all the scripting. If you have a problem with this mod, with the scripting of these rule books, just click the fix button and that'll fix it. Okay, so that's a big change as well. There is more though. If we look down here, we've put some helper buttons on the tile offers, just so to speed up tile creation. Now this is not a fully automated system. Cryptotia says that he may get to making auto setup buttons for all the scenarios at some point, but there's no plans in the near future. He's going to take a break for a while. So what these buttons do, they add to, these are the pull buttons, just like before, and these three here are where you actually have the tile. So say you need to add 7 random country map tiles, you can just click this to 7 and you can add the country map tiles, and now they're in here. If you want to add 3 random city tiles, bam. We want to add 5 random core city tiles, you go bam, and then you can just hit shuffle core city tiles onto the pile, and out they come. And same with the other ones. Now again, it's not 100% automated, but that's why there's these sort of shuffler piles. So say you only needed, if you had to have a certain type of tile, like say we needed to have 1 red city tile all the time, you'd drag it into there first and stuff like that. So if I just pull these back out. Right, so say I needed certain tiles in either one. So I needed to have, the white city and I needed to have the blue city. I'd put it into the shuffler like that. And then it said, oh, and now you need 1 random city. I just set that to 1 random city, and I need 3 random core tiles. And that's how you create the shuffled deck, and then you just add it to the thing. Now, it's not, like I said, it's not 100% automated, but it actually speeds it up quite a lot. And then when you finish, you just click this button and it will remove all those buttons, and then you're ready to play. Finally, the other thing that was added is these cool draw to buttons. So basically, when you're playing, you can just hit the draw to 5 and out will come 5 cards. If you've used a couple of cards and you click it, it'll just redraw to whatever you have set. You've got the plus and minus buttons, so you can set them at will. You've also got a draw 1 card button. Now, one of the reasons these are in is to aid multiplayer solo. So when you're playing multiplayer solo, you actually have all the different colors for the units, so the different hands. So when you're playing multiplayer with other people, they sit at these tables and they can just, use their player board. But if you are playing multiplayer solo, like say I want to play with this guy as well, if I draw those cards, it's invisible. The Tabletop Simulator devs have added a new option into the options menu called hands, where you can just disable the hidden hand feature. So you just hit hands and then hit disable here, make sure it's still enabled, and go save and exit. And now all the hands are visible to you, and then you can use these buttons to quite simply draw up as you need. Bam. So that is all the major changes to the scripting. Now there is a number of small light changes that I did graphical wise, and I'll go through them in a sec, but that's the quick introduction. Now I'm going to reload the file and I will talk about all the changes and how to use the mod in a functional way in a tutorial type system. So yeah, I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so now that I just did a quick run through of the new scripting stuff, there's a few other features that I didn't go into. I'm just going to do a quick tutorial on how to do the whole plugin, just to make it completely clear for everybody, and then me and Crypt can call this one done for the time being. Okay, so basically when you start the game, you're going to get something like this. Make sure that you have in the scripting options, auto run turned on. It's going to save you a lot of headaches. If you ever have any problem, save the game, turn on auto run, and then reload, and it should fix it. But it should look like this when you start the game. Now, as you know, if you play Tabletop Simulator, when people join your games, you assign them colors at the table. In this case, the colors are green, white, red, and blue, and the white is player 1 by default. Player 2, the best place is obviously the red seat. Blue and green is player discretion. So these knights here match those colors. So when you sit down in a multiplayer game, you can sit wherever, and all the players need to do is pick up their knight and add it to, just drop them on their mage knight they want to use. Now there's a couple of buttons here. You've got competitive mode on or competitive mode off, and you've got blitz scenario on and blitz scenario off. Now, this is just something you need to set up at the beginning. If you have competitive mode on, it'll mix in the competitive skills. If you have it off, it'll put in the cooperative skills. And remember, the competitive spells will be deleted if you don't need them, basically, depending on what you select. Now, if you do need those competitive spells for the Lost Legion campaign, there's the Lost Legion boxes over here with all the Lost Legion stuff. So what we're going to do, we're just going to quickly set up a scenario. So we're going to come to the quick scenario guides, click that, and we'll pick a scenario that requires a little bit of fiddling around. Now, the one that requires the most fiddling is Shades of Tesla, so we're going to do that one. So we're going to play a 4-player cooperative version of Shades of Tesla, and we're going to play it multi-handed solo. So you just come to the scenario summary and we just work off here. So for starters, we need an open map, and we need 11 country tiles, 5 of which are glades. We need 3 city tiles, which includes red and green, and we need 4 non-city tiles. So let's just do the city tiles first. We need red, green, and 1 other. So the way this works with these new buttons down here, let's just hit the... So we need blitz mode off for this as well. So let's just hit the start mode. So we've got competitive on, we've got blitz off, and hit start, bam. And that'll set up all the player board, shuffle everything, and we're ready to go. Oh, it should be noted that over here, you've got this little random thing you can shuffle out. And this is so you can drag out random mage knights. So if you want to, choose your mage knights randomly rather than selecting them, you can, do that. Anyway, so now we want to set up the Tesla board. So to do this, we just come down and we've got these new fancy buttons that Crypt has done for us to make it a little bit easier. So remember, we needed we needed the green and the red city tile. There we are. And we needed 1 other. So the way this works is that you've got the 2 shufflers. So you've got the shuffler, and then you've got the token piles here. So now that we've got the 2 city tiles we want to click this and it says add 1 random city tile. You can change that with the plus and minus. So we just go click, and that'll add a random city tile in there. Then once we do that, we need 4 non-city tiles. So we just go 1, 2, 3, 4, set that to 4, and we go add. And that adds it all to the shuffler. And then we just hit the shuffle core and city tiles and add to the pile. Bam. And it's very quick, but it is shuffling them. And now we need 5 glades, and we need 11 total country tiles. So it's the same deal. This is the shuffler here. This is the countryside section. So we just come up here And we're going to find the glades. Okay, and there's 6 total glades, so we'll just shuffle that manually and we'll just drag one out. Put the rest of these tiles back where they came from. And now we have the 5 glades that we need, and we need another total of 11 tiles. So we need another 6 country tiles. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just hit add. And then we go shuffle and add to pile. Yeah, bam. And we'll just get rid of this. And then once you've got your map set up, you just hit the remove buttons. Boom. Now remember, the Shades of Tesla is the one with the most fiddling. Most quests, you can just go add 11 core city tiles and then shuffle and add, you know. It just that happens, you need specific tiles in those Tesla quests. Now it's an open map, so that's O for open. So there's all the different, there's wedge and there's open. And the open map uses the start tile set to tile B. So you can see that it's set to A because the little bottom corner there says A. So you just hit the 2 button, which is the B button, and bam, up is the second. This is the tile we're using. So because we're using tile B, we're going to add it over B. If we were playing with the A tile, you'd drop it over the A. And this is important so all the snap points work. So let's just add it to B. And what I like to do is lock it and then right click and turn off that tooltip because it annoys me. Okay, and we're pretty much ready to start setting up the quest. So we'll just flip over the tiles we need and boom. And then you just follow the normal rules for setup. Now, let's just pretend, let's see, do we have a monastery here somewhere? There we are. So let's just pretend we drew a monastery in our opening hand. Just delete them because we don't need them. What we're going to do now is set up the unit offers. So if you come down to the unit offer, it should automatically say the right number of units because we're playing without the blitz rules, so we don't have that extra unit. So it's just the 4 players plus 2. And if we had the elite tiles were ready, we'd just click elite on. But all we need to do is hit that button and out will come the units. And it's important to do this first because remember, we got a monastery. So we just drag a monastery token and drop it in, and that will reveal the monastery action card. And from now on, if I hit the clear and I hit add, it'll deal a new one based on how many monasteries we've dropped here. Now the reason why you want to do that first is that if you drop every time you drop a monastery tile, it'll deal 1 out automatically. So if you drop a monastery tile, it'll deal 1 out, then you do the offer, you'll end up with 2 tiles. So just make sure you do your units and then you drop the monastery tile. Okay, and these ones are the same as before, they just refresh as needed. Okay, so there's a few other things. Basically, we've got this little shuffler here, so you can shuffle this up and drag out your mage knights, and this gives you the player order for selecting your initial tactics. So these are your tactics here. And that's handy because, you know, the tactic order determines player order, but this random shuffle at the beginning determines the choices of picking those initial tactics. Once you've done that, just delete that, otherwise your dice are going to constantly fall in there. Now the player boards are almost identical to what they used to be, apart from the nifty new draw to 5 button, which you can add to, you know, draw extra cards. But there are a few changes here as well. For starters, there are now snap points along here. So these things all snap nice and neat. And I've also added a little thing that I use that I started using in my own games, and I thought was cool, so I added it to the mod permanently. Basically, there's a little keep tracking tokens that are here next to the blood tokens, and you can drag these out and just drop them in a line down here. And as you conquer keeps, you just drag these out, and it's just an easy way to keep track of how many keeps you've conquered for your card draw. Now, it's not quite as important now that we actually have you can actually just set this to draw to 7 cards every time, but I still like it, so I've left it in. And that's pretty much it for the player boards. Remember, if you use a couple of cards, you still hit the draw 2 button. So if I have that draw to 5, it'll only draw 2. Now, a lot of people have been asking me on my video, because I've been playing a version of this mod on my channel, how I'm quickly handling the cards. Well, basically, if you've got mana tokens you've dragged out on your cards or whatever, if you just select everything and hit the G button, it groups all the cards together and then drops them. So now nothing is selected except the crystals. So I can just hit the delete button to get rid of the crystals and then drop the card in the slot. Okay, and you can pull your dice out from here. Remember, it's 4 dice, for 1 dice for each player, plus 2, and if you're playing Blitz, you get an extra dice. Boom, and they just roll as you need. Okay, now, because the dice kind of always flow to the same spot, it's a good idea to kind of bunch them up in the side here, like so. You'd have to re-roll this one because you've got 3 golds. Also, with the dummy player, I like to lock it down. Normally the dummy players come with some crystals on them, but because this was a last minute change, they don't. So you just have to drag the crystals out of here. If you're playing with lower player counts, the dummy player will be aligned with one of these boards. So the way to get a random dummy player is, again, we just use the random Mage Knight picker. We go voomp, ooh, and we've got that red Mage Knight who we're actually playing with. So let's get someone else. Okay, we'll get Yinch. So we just pick this guy up and come over here. So you just drag out the parts of this guy. So there's his deck. There's his counter. Goes into the 5th slot. And there's his major card, which will lock in. And of course he needs his crystals, which you can just drag onto from here. Now remember, when you're playing solo, you drag out skills every time you level up, but you don't use those skills at all if you're playing co-op. But that is how we set up a dummy board. Make sure you give the deck a shuffle. After playing this mod quite a bit in my spare time, mainly solo, I've worked out my favorite way of using the tactic cards is to have it like this. So basically, while these are sit down here, you can still shuffle them by right-clicking and going shuffle. But they're just locked, and the reason why I have them locked is just so it's easier to drag, select, and pick up dice. But you can still use them quite easily. So for example, let's just have a quick look. For example, in this one, the co-op life and death that we're doing, the dummy player picks first. So what we need to do is randomly shuffle this and then just drag a card out, and that's his first pick. So he's picked number 1, so he's probably going to be going first. Oops, I picked from the black deck. That's the nighttime deck. So let's do from the correct deck just for accuracy's sake. Oh, he gets planning. That's the worst of the worst. So the easiest way to do this, to pick these cards, is to have each player just right click on it and go search, and it will open up this little window here. They can choose whatever card they want. Say I want Great Start, bam. The next player, they want Rethink, they can go bam. and so forth and so on, like that. And once you've all set this up, you can readjust the player order. So in this case, it would go 1 first player, then we have second player is Goldex, third player is actually the dummy player, then we have Erythrek and Wolfhawk. And that's pretty much how the game works. Now you'll notice that if I draw the cards, I can't see them, right? But that's fine. All you need to do is go into the options and click hands and click disable and go apply. And now you can see all the cards. And that's pretty much how the game functions. There's a few more things. You'll note that all these guys have turned up where they're supposed to be. You've got discard piles for all the tokens that you gain. You've got a die here that you can roll for when you're playing Tesla to determine what faction they become, whether they're going to be the Elementalists or whether they're going to be the Necromancer faction. Now here you've got the default tokens that you're going to use. These are all the Tesla tokens. The reason I would have liked to have them, you know, in the Tesla bag along with the Lost Legion. There's some more Tesla tokens in there, but I couldn't. Well, I guess I could do it with a setup script now, but I just wanted these out here just so they were nicely, neatly set up for you guys. With these big tokens here, you can just type in the number. So say you want a level 12, you just type in 12, and there it is. You knock him down to 11, he becomes 11, 10, and so on. And that's the same for these guys over here. These are the city tokens, which you don't need to use. I just put them in for completion's sake. So say we're playing on a city. You've got the reference card here for easy use, but say we want to set it to level 5. We just hit 5, and that sets it to 5. Pretty easy. Also, when you're getting a wound, there's a wound pile here. You just drag directly from the wound pile into your hand. Or, you know, place it in here if you're poisoned. Now, if I just grab a unit, you can draw unit tiles, you know, action cards or whatever they're called off here as you level up. I like to press the L button to lock the units down. Let's say we had 2 units. And you can just drop these down here to activate them if they require mana. So say we did this guy and we paid with a green mana, it would just look something like that. Now, if you are wounding your unit, I've got special wound tokens for the units here that you can drop on to the guy like this. And I did it like this because I like to still be able to read the cards. I often read the cards by zooming in like this rather than just, you know, doing a pop-up. But this way, I think it just looks a little better. And if they take 2 wounds, this is stackable tokens, so you can drop them on top of each other. So it says 2. Of course, you could just, you know, drop them like that. And that comes from the wound token here, which is next to the keep counting token. And that's pretty much everything, I think. Oh, there's a few more things. Basically, over here, we have these little standees. Now, I like to use these pugs here for my mage knights and move them around. So, you know, they just move out. Remember, you've got the shield tokens as you conquer things. You just drop them on the table like that. But if you prefer standees, all the standees are in here. So you can have standees like that if you prefer to use them. Okay, so I think that is pretty much everything. All the stuff, I get asked about this quite a lot, all the stuff here is just preloading stuff. This is stuff behind the scenes for the scripting and stuff like that, so don't screw with that. And that is about it. I fixed the errors in this token board here for everybody. There's a little resistance table that tells you how to handle the blocks and the attacks, which can be very confusing in this game, especially for new players. And that is about that. I don't think there's anything else to go over. Actually, there is a few other things. I talked about these are the normal tokens you use. These are all the Tesla tokens. But over here, you have these special ones that I've made, which have everything mixed in them. These will have, see, basically these ones here, right, have all the core set tokens plus all the Lost Legion tokens. And the reason for that is it's just better that way. And it's not just me saying this. This is actually recommended by the designer himself as always use it. There's a number of fixes. Some tokens are replaced with new versions. So these are the default for Lost Legion and for the core set. And these ones here are just the Tesla ones. But over here, for those who wish to use it, there is everything mixed in. These have core, Tesla, and it's also got Lost Legion. So if you want to use those. Also down here, there's a special dice I made for the game, which is just an artifact die. Basically, there's a number of effects where you have to roll a dice. On a 1 or a 6, you get a spell. Everything else gives you an artifact. And this is a dice you can just use. That is for spell, and that is for artifact. So you can just roll this as needed to determine the artifacts. This is the artifact deck here, remember? I didn't go over this, but this is pretty self-explanatory. You've got your shield tokens that you can put on the map. You've got your blood tokens we've already talked about. You've got your level up tokens, and you've got all your mana tokens that you can draw out here, and you've got all your skills. So you can just drag them out as you need. Oh, it's actually good that Krang's out because I can show you this. Some of the tokens like this, all the tokens, they have all the information on them. So that I haven't included the helper cards because I've written exactly what the helper card says on the token if you just mouse over it. And some tokens like this special one here actually is a multiple object token. So for example, it starts off like that. You know, you roll your dice and you pick your color, and then if you look, you can actually see how it's changing. That's because, you know, that's just how the token works here. You know, the gold is activated now and now green is activated or whatever. So make sure you mouse over the token, because if there's any special instructions, it'll be on the token itself. Also, you might actually, if I can just find a tile example. This is another thing that everybody was complaining about with the mod. Here we are. Basically, I have added proper snap points to the maze and the labyrinth tiles. And what I mean by that is, if I just grab some tokens, beforehand, anything you dropped on any tile would snap to the center like that. Okay, but with these particular tiles, you actually can conquer individual sections, and that will now snap correctly. What this does mean is that if you place your guy wrong, he'll snap into the wrong spot, but the center is still there. So if you just drop it in the center proper, it'll still snap to the right spot. But that's just a fix that a lot of people are asking for, which I have done. Finally, you might notice these things. These are the little quest markers. This is for a fan-made expansion that I've included. I have plans to include others. The rest of the expansions are over here. In fact, all the expansion stuff are over here. We've got some shades of Tesla cards just for people that need it. Remember, again, all that same data is, if I can get the right token, all that same data is written on the token itself. So you've got vial of toxins on this card, but we don't actually need the card because it's written on the token. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that we actually have the quest card variants here. Oh, I forgot to scale this up. This should probably be scaled up so it's a little bit easier to read. So I've included my own version because I wasn't particularly happy with this is my version of the rules. There is another version that you can find on Board Game Geek. So check that out. There's the rule sheet for it. And basically you have these decks and they are, just used as the rule here states. So if you want to use that expansion, this is what these tokens here are for that expansion. Oh, also, basically, even if you have the rules out, so let's just load the Tesla rules. There's quite a lot of space here and all along here, even with the rules out that I've left for future additions to the app. So if you want to use the quest card variant, there's a nice space. You can dump everything up here, dump the cards and, just play like that. And that's pretty easy. Basically, the way these works is that you can get these quests that you can then achieve over the course of the game, and they give you little bonuses and stuff. It's actually pretty cool. There's also another cute little tip for Tabletop Simulator in general you can do when you're pulling rules pages out of boxes. If you just hold the mouse, so you're dragging it around, if you drag it somewhere, like off the table, you can then just, while you've got it dragged off the table, just press the L key and it'll lock it, and then it'll just stay floating there. And that's a good way, especially for tables like this that have a billion things on it, and you want to, put a rule book out or something and there's no room, even though there is actually technically room. Okay, I think that is definitely it for Really Reels this time. So that is how the mod functions, and I hope you guys have fun. Remember, this is a fantastic game and I strongly recommend you buy it, because nothing is better than owning the real thing. You can get it from these kids' games. I'll see you guys